So, attention class. Okay, right now, we're about to start our panel discussion, leadership and the media. And I just want to take a moment to introduce our panel, members of the Rochester Association of Black Journalists. The Rochester Association of Black Journalists was chartered in April of 2014. It's an affiliate of the National Association of Black Journalists, an organization of about 3,000 journalists, students, and media-related professionals that advocate diversity in the newsroom and in news content. The Rochester Association of Black Journalists' mission is to help ensure diversity in the area of media and accurate, balanced coverage of communities of color while serving as a resource for both established and aspiring communicators of African descent. It is a professional organization whose memberships includes journalists from areas of print, TV, radio, and online outlets, also public relations and communications professional service members, along with educators and anyone else in the media or media-related professions. Student memberships are also available for those who are training to become journalists as a career. And the president is Richard McCollough, who we have with us today. And the other panelists that we have, Kevin Hicks, who is a freelance journalist and who will be the moderator for today. Sasha Ann Simmons from WXXI. Tiana Stevens from the city of Rochester. Christopher Brooks from the Democrat and Chronicle. George Randy from the Challenger Community News. And as two people to support the panel, we have Joanne Gordon from WXXI and one person who is on the way, Wanda Austin. So if we can stand and just give them a round of applause. And then right now, everyone is just going to say a little bit about themselves. So just give them the opportunity.
So let me begin. I'm happy to be here this morning. Just make a correction. The Rochester Association of Black Journalists, we just celebrated our 10th anniversary. We were chartered in April of 2004, and before that it was the Rochester Black Communicators, and so we kind of succeeded from that. So we've had this kind of organization going for more than 20-some years here in Rochester, but we're very happy to be a part of AALDP, and we're very happy to see so many people here this morning, and let's have a good program.
All right.
Okay.
Why don't we go on right down the line?
Hi, my name is Joanne Gordon. I'm senior editor at WXXI TV. I've been there for 30 years. I'm AALDP graduate of 2010. Yay. I'm vice president of broadcast for RABJ, and I'm here for support. We have our panelists here. So that's it, and good luck to all of you.
All right, good morning, everyone. George Rodney, Challenger Community News, Western New York's largest weekly African-American publication. We've been in business since 1962. I've been with the paper since my sophomore year of college. That would have been 1982. So you put the numbers together, and we're still with the Challenger. Here it is, what is it, right, 2015? Oh my goodness, we gotta add those numbers up.
I also might say that Mr. Rodney was he was the first coordinator of the African American Leadership Development.
That's right. I'm glad to see this program is still going on. 1991, we sat down, myself, Dr. Jefferson, S.E. Calhoun. It was this little, I said, wow, we're really going to put this together? I said, well, man, we're going to do all the work. Dr. Jefferson. I said, oh, that's why I'm hired. Okay, Dr. Jefferson. So we ended up having over 120 volunteers. We met Monday through Thursday nights with the different committees. We had 4 or 5 different committees that helped. So we went for an entire year of putting this program together with various meetings. We started, I believe, in 1992 or 93. 92 it was? Great. We started with 2 classes. We used to have 1 class in the fall, 1 class in the spring, and we did that for 2 straight years. And I'm just glad to see that this program is continuing to grow just from what we started back at that time period and getting this program off the ground. And I'm glad to see we got more and more people, more and more new faces, and a group working together. So I'm glad to see it. We're here and continue to work together and under Rodney Young.
Let's give
making it
Mr.
happen.
Rodney some.
Hi, I'm Tiana Stevens. I'm a guest of Joanne. I'm not a member of RABJ, but I'm with the City of Rochester. We have a program called Citywise, which is on City 12, the Government Access Channel. So I'm happy to hear your pitches later. I'm always looking for positive stories to tell. Our focus is, first of all, the mayor's priorities and what initiatives is she rolling out, what services is the city offering that people might not know about. So we try to balance it with City of Rochester material and community programs. So that's basically it. I'm also a writer for it. Before I worked for the City of Rochester, was the assignment editor at Channel 8 for a number of years, and before that I worked in Denver, but I'm still 29 years old.
Kevin Hicks, I'm the Vice President for Print for the Rochester Association of Black Journalists. Richard made an allusion to an earlier organization, the Rochester Association of Black Communicators, which was started by Janet Lomax, who many of you may know here in Rochester. So I've got a long history with the organization as it's progressed over the years. I'm formerly with the Democrat and Chronicle, worked as an editorial assistant there, which included doing a lot of stories on general assignment, a lot of different topics. One of the things that I specialized while I was there was the Asian American community, because I wanted to get to know ethnicity different from my own. And so I was able to do some early stories about that community's efforts to document their history. And I'm just pleased to be here.
Hi, my name is Sasha Ann Simons. I'm actually new to Rochester. I've only been here for, I think, 8 months now, if I can do the math properly. I work at WXXI. I'm a multimedia reporter and producer. I'm hailing from Toronto, Canada. So I've been living in Toronto for about 2 decades, Jamaican born, and decided to test the waters on the other side of the border. So they actually let me in March. It's quite the struggle, but I did it. At WXXI, I work on a series called Innovation Trail, and I'm part of a local journalism collaboration. So it's a collaboration with a bunch of upstate New York stations and some stations in the southern regions of the country, where we look at, I'm always looking for local stories, of course, in Rochester, but I then have to sort of put it into a national context. And so, because there's lots of other comparable communities in the country that can be affected by the very same things that we're going through here. So I'm always looking for those kinds of stories. I've been in the business for about 9 years. Started working while I was still in school. So I was one of the fortunate ones to land my full-time job. I had to take a vacation day from work to go graduate. It was that crazy. And so I'm definitely thankful for that. But I've worked in front and behind the camera. I spent a ton of time in Toronto also producing. I used to produce for our number 2 station, the 6 and 11 newscasts on Saturdays and Sundays, as well as the 11 on weeknights. It was hectic, 14-hour days on weekends. I left the business for about 1.5 years and I went on the communications end. So I was the one pitching stories to the media, and then came running back to broadcast because I missed television badly. So I'm really happy to be here. My connection with the RBJ is I found them as soon as I got here in the spring, and got really involved, kind of dove in right away, and now I'm the treasurer of the association. So I'm really excited to be taking that on and to be here with you guys. This is awesome. We don't have anything like this in Canada or in Toronto.
Talking about yourself is always really weird. Well, if Sasha's new, I'm brand new. I've only been here a month. My name is Christopher Brooks. I am the Innovation and Entrepreneurship Reporter for the DNC. take that as you will. I came here from Florida, actually, right outside of Tampa, a small town right outside of Tampa called Plant City. But I'm originally from Detroit, so it's not like I'm foreign to cold. I know snow. And started my career in 2000 in high school, right? Wrote high school sports and hated it, and decided to do news. So I've been a professional for about 8 years. Before I came here, I actually wrote about schools most of my career. Like 8 years, I wrote about higher education, and was doing that in Virginia and Tennessee, Nebraska, Florida before I came here. And I applied for this job, and the editor over at the DNC said, well, you know, a lot of our, you know, innovative things come out of our universities, and you have the college background, so just start at RIT and UR and just let them be your Sherpas and just sort of go from there. So we're seeing if that's going to work out so far, but I'm enjoying myself here. I'm going to be a soon-to-be member of RABJ. I just got here. I haven't been to a meeting yet, but I will be a member. So my job more so is to write about sort of the innovation ecosystem that the city's in the middle of creating. I spend a lot of my time talking to startups, talking to venture capitalists, inventors, patent lawyers, everything sort of around that space is my audience and the people that I'm writing for and to. So it's sort of a new beat for me, and I'm still learning the city a little bit. I got a tiny apartment in Irondequoit, and I haven't really left that area, so I need to still learn all of Monroe counties, but be patient with me, and I'll do so. But I'm happy to be here, and I'm glad you guys have me. Thanks so much.
So we just go around and introduce ourselves for our panel, and just describe a little bit of who we are, where we're coming from, our job location, quickly, briefly. So I'm April Akot. I work at various places from Villa of Hope to Rochester General, a couple other local organizations, as well as my own private practice. So we'll start with you and go around place. Thank you.
Roland DeLarge is my name. I'm with the City of Rochester IT department. I am a technology person. I currently keep computers working in law enforcement and parking violations. You know, some people kind of get upset with me when the improvement works. Summons for doing the day you should have done in the first place.
I am Brandy Solomon. I am an assistant director for the Archival Job Path program. I am a skill builder for the Villa of Hope, and I am a doula helping moms have their babies.
I am Chantel Frazier. I am a career specialist, a youth career specialist with Rochester Works. I probably have pretty close to almost 30 years, even though I'm still 29. almost 30 years experience working with youth and families within the Rochester area, dealing with anything from homelessness or any issues, any crisis, more in the trenches and doing some frontline work one-on-one with youth.
Good morning. My name is Ilona Charles. I'm the supervisor at MVP Healthcare, and I've been with the company for about 17 years.
Good morning. My name is Kimberly Mitchell. I have an event design business, and I am your timekeeper.
I'm Michael Clark. I'm a commercial loan officer with Canada National Bank. That's it.
I'm Ryan Mitchell. I'm in the real estate division.
All right. My name is Brittany Wells. I'm from the City of Rochester Mayor's Office, and I had the pleasure of working with Tiana Stevens on many initiatives.
MJ Allen. I'm a compliance administrator with Lifetime Benefit Solutions and an entrepreneur.
Hello, Kwame Much. I work for Hillside Work Scholarship Connection. I work right in the city school district. Actually, I'm a youth advocate, and we look forward to promoting our students each year to go on to college, and also keep them involved in different programs, college tours, and tutoring programs. So.
Hi, my name is Shanetta Williams. I am an employment navigator at the Community Case of Greater Rochester.
Someone from the organization documenting things that's very important. A lot of times when the media is working on a story, we rely on submitted photographs, some of your archival information, so kudos to you for doing that. I'd like to start out with each of the panelists talking a little bit about the advantages and disadvantages, or strengths and weaknesses, rather, of their other medium, just so you can get a better idea about some of the things that each of the mediums play to a little bit better. Let me start on my left with Chris.
Sure, thanks. We are in strong efforts to try to transition ourselves from typically known as a newspaper company to more of a digital company. I can't necessarily, you need me to speak louder?
Yes.
Sorry. We are trying to better position ourselves to be known less as a newspaper company and more of a digital outfit. We're not 100% there yet. We still put out a print product. So that means we are better, or I would say our advantage as a publication is that we have more space to dive deeper into issues. We aren't so much tied to a particular soundbite or a particular time frame in which something has to be aired. If there's some complexity to issues, it sort of lends itself to not only us, but just print publications in general. You got a great alt weekly here. You got a couple of great magazines in the city as well. Those are the places you sort of go to if you want if you want complex issues explained a little bit better. Now we're sort of not the place that you go to if you have extremely visual video, right? You still want to go to TV in those places because that's sort of what their home base has always been. That's tied to their identity. So if you want to have a deep, in-depth conversation about something that's probably going to take more explaining than one article or one broadcast, I'd say come to us. I'd say come to print publications. Us doesn't necessarily mean the DSC, it's just that particular medium. Does that make sense?
Yes, makes sense.
I'm going to piggyback off of that to say I'm with public broadcasting here, as you know, so PBS and NPR, very much different than your Channel 10, your Channel 8, or your Channel 13. And in that we do something very similar, is that we're not always there when it happens, but we're definitely there afterwards to tell the story that lasts. It's not always just about the fact that someone got shot. It's the effect, and it's who's involved and so forth. And those are more of the types of stories that we'll tell. So you won't always see our trucks out there, on the scene of things that are happening, but we'll definitely cover it on a broader context. That being said, our weakness, I would say, public broadcasting has a very specific audience that's older, white, male usually, and it's just a very specific group that we're talking to, and so we have trouble reaching people like me and you, and that's what we still need to work on. It's membership based, so again, it's like this elite group of people that are getting your content, but you want to be able to push it further, and that's what we're still working on trying to fix.
Thanks, Sasha. Tiana?
City-wise and City 12 is sort of like Sasha, public access channels, government access channels. So essentially, it is the people's television station. So for the stories that I choose for City-wise, I would say 75% of stories come from people just calling me. Precious, Shirley called me to tell me about this race summit that was coming up, and so. Emails, phone calls, sometimes the mayor will refer someone, like, hey, I can't make it to your event, but, we really want to support your initiative, and, we'd like to have you on Citywide, so she'll send me guest ideas. But advantages, the length of the interview, I split the show, it's a 30-minute show, and I split that into 2 segments, so the interviews are about 12 minutes to 15 minutes long, which a typical media interview, 2 minutes is a long interview. So you really can't say what you need to say in 2 minutes. So the longer format is a plus. But the timing, the way we do it, we tape the show. We tape 2 shows every 2 weeks, and then the shows don't air for another week or 2 after. So it's kind of hard to, when something new comes out, to get it on the show because it's already booked, or by the time we interview, it's not going to air until after the event. So timing is sometimes tricky.
Well, I'm sure we'll hit some of it as we go along, George.
Yes, strength of the paper is newspapers. There's been a resurgence in newspapers overall. People thought back when the internet started and online publications. Unfortunately, the Gannett publications, all that, just not to mention because you're here on the panel, but Gannett especially, and the Murdoch publications, everybody thought, man, newspapers are gone. We gotta go internet. So they went heavy on internet. And to me, they sold their souls to the internet and forgot about what brought them here. What made their money is newspapers. Newspapers is making a resurgence. You're seeing more and more specialty papers coming out. Just in Western New York alone, you're seeing new publications here in this marketplace that's coming out. Magazines. Over in Buffalo, you see monthly publications coming out. You're seeing more art voices coming out again. You got new publications. So there's a big resurgence in print, because what happens is when you go online and you're looking to read a story, they're just telling you what stories to read. Then when you look it open, you really can't see the whole paper. But here, when you have a newspaper in your hand, you can see story number 1, story number 2, go to it, see it, and say, oh, wow, look at here, here's a story about Susie. I didn't know she just became the director of so-and-so. So, because with online, you miss a lot, because it's not formatted for you to read like a newspaper where you can look at it, peruse it, and read all the articles, see something about French Festival, see about the job opportunities. And then next of it, with specialty publications like the Challenger Community News, when Sister Anissa Barbara Banks started this paper, or not started the paper, but when she bought it in 1980 from Assemblyman Arthur O'Eve, and when I was interning with her, she had an idea of how to grow this paper and say, George, what does our people want? We all went on the board, put down what the areas we wanted, and we said, hey, we want to know what's going on in Buffalo. We want to know what's going on in Rochester. We want to know national news. We want to know, and for the national news, for example, in this week's Challenger, Africa has the highest rate of population growth among major areas. But you're not going to hear that on CNN or any other national news. That's why it's important that you read your own publication, your own people's publications, and other people read our publications too. I mean, the Yemens at the corner store, they can't wait to see the paper, because then when they see me, they ask me questions. Hey, I read this in your paper. What's going on here? You talking about my people? I didn't know you did. So they're all over me, and I got to read the national news a lot more now, so I can read up to date, talk to them at the corner store. They're more interested in our news than we are in some cases. So consequently, it says here 2.4 billion people are projected to be added to the global population of Africa between the year 2015 and 2050. That's a 1.3 billion people added to Africa. So something's happening over there. We're not being told on the media, but some jobs, their employment, something big is happening there. This many people is going over there. So that's why it's so important to read your own people's paper. Read your paper. It's always the script. You continue on. You have the religious section of the paper. You have faith and news. You have your entertainment section. You have your health and fitness section. A very good health and fitness section. This sister writes a really good stuff on health and fitness, give you how to eat to live with quality food and things of that nature, and things that are good for you and bad for you. And we talk about the issues too. We hit you straight forward with it. If public notices, classified section, sports section, and one section that people love too up here is the number page. People love those numbers. You know we love those numbers, right? Come on. You know everybody got a family member, or maybe some of y'all here today probably. Before 5 o'clock or before noon and so forth. So that's why it's important. And the strength of the paper, our only weakness is that we're weekly. We're not a daily, we're weekly. We get our paper out on a timely fashion. And we continue to grow. And now we're gaining more businesses now because the major paper they only can go so black. They ain't going to be totally black. The Democrat Chronicle and all these other major publications, but we will always be black.
Hey, that's a good point. That's a good point to end on right there. So and continue the discussion. Thank you for analysis.
What were some of the weaknesses? What were some of the weaknesses?
They were weekly.
Just weekly,
Yeah,
weekly,
yeah.
and growing, and also getting our people more used to this saying, hey, let's write a story. You're the artist, we make you the reporter. You can be, if you got writers out there in the audience or family members, hey, you can send an article in and support it, and we're able to work with you on it and deal with various issues that's in the community. Buffalo is really good at doing that. Here in Rochester, we're still growing. We still got to grow together and say, hey, we can do for ourselves, we can write our own articles. And that's what makes this community paper even stronger, because some of the articles come from you, our readers, and people who are being affected by different situations here in the community.
Great, thank you, George. One of the things Tiana mentioned was about accessing her show. And if each of you could tell a little bit about how you prefer to get news tips, what type of information is crucial. I know working as a editorial assistant at the Democrat and Chronicle, one of the things, some basic things that were left off sometimes was a date or a place. And when you're working in the media and you're juggling a lot of stories, that slows things down. And so let me start with Sasha.
So I get my news tips in a lot of different ways. I'm pretty active on Twitter and on Facebook, so people I found like to direct, and now you can direct message anybody. I believe you don't have to follow the person anymore. So a lot of people like to just DM me or whatever, any story tips or any information like that. Email is another big one. To tell you the truth, I got a lot of my stories from just being nosy. I like the tea. I will sip that tea. I will, I'll just hear that something's happening. I'm like, oh, really? What's that? What's going on? And so a lot of my best stuff has really come up just by me being just in the right place at the right time and hearing, that something's going on, or people hearing that I'm a reporter, and then they turn to me and they start to sort of tell me what's going on. But my biggest advice, though, is when you are pitching those stories, again, time is a factor. I'm constantly juggling a lot of things like that. Multimedia is not a joke in my title. But I need you to sort of make it concise, and I need to also hear why I should care. So there needs to be a huge, why should I care? Because if I don't care, my viewers, my listeners, they're not going to care at all.
So it's kind of like the so what
The
factor.
so what. I can't convey it properly. I can't make people care. Because my job is to, after you tell me, for me to tell everybody else. And I can't do a good job in conveying it properly if I'm not sold on it. I'm not saying I have to relate to it, because that's part of my job as well, is to be able to become an expert in different issues on any given day and then regurgitate the information. But there has to be the so what factor. That's huge. And it has to be relevant to my form of storytelling. So I shoot video. I also repurpose for radio. And so it has to be visual. That's the number one thing, is something. You'll give me an idea, but but how am I going to tell that story visually? How can I show that? If you're telling me something that happened a long time ago, do you have some photographs? Do you have something that I can put on, with the story? So there's always that as well, as thinking of what it's going to look like and then why I should care.
Very good. Chris?
Thanks. So our typical sort of paper transaction is a press release. Everyone's heard of a press release before, right? Mm-hmm. Okay. I like having my news tips either emailed to me. I have a lot of people have texted me things. When I hand out my business card, my cell phone number is on it. I don't mind people texting me. I don't mind you Facebook or Twitter DMing me as well. But if you haven't written one or you haven't seen one, go on YouTube and look at a 5-minute video instructing you how to write a press release. We're basically saying we need to know when it's happening, where it's happening at, why we should care. Because like Sasha said, at the end of the day, if we're going to cover this story, we also have to let our bosses know too. And if we can't convey to them why we're excited about covering this, it's probably not going to happen. And that the onus falls upon you guys to make us care. I mean, it does. Because you guys can't see our inboxes, but on any given day, we have literally dozens and dozens and hundreds of emails coming from people from different organizations in different parts of the city asking us to do the same thing that you want us to do. And we are not able to multiply and do everything at once. So we have to be selective about those things, selective about the things that we cover. And I think the best way you can sort of get your pitch higher up to all of the other ones that are being pitched to us are those things that you talked about. Is it visual? How do you connect it to what's happening in a larger context of our city? Either economically, either socially, culturally, what's happening in entertainment-wise, sports-wise. Us being a general audience newspaper, we have a couple of staffers that are focused on particular communities, but in a greater sense, we write stories that affect the larger city. So we're more so going to care about the way that you pitch me something if it can apply to a lot of people, not just people on your block, if that makes any sense. So I'd say quickly learn how to write a press release. Make sure you write in there how it's important to us, why we should cover it, what it means in the larger context, and send it to us through email. You have to be really good at figuring out in a particular news organization who covers what. And most of our news organizations have websites that can explain that. And a lot of times people will send emails in like sort of this blast format to everyone in the newsroom. Don't do that. That's going to kill you, because I'm going to tell you what's going to happen. All of us are going to see it and no one's going to respond because, oh, we thought Jim had it. Oh, we thought Sandy had it. Oh, we thought Kevin had it. You have to be really precise about who you send it to, because we have specific wheelhouses that may lend ourselves to what you're talking about. Go ahead.
No, sorry, I don't want to cut you at all. I was just going to say, you're reminding me of one thing I want to make sure I get across to you. Again, with me being visual, I need you to give me like my opening soundbite, or my opening. So when you give me that, why should I care? Like, give me that, like, not only what Chris was saying about, I have to go back to my boss and be like, oh my God, Shanetta just came and she told me this thing. Like, I have to be just as excited as I was when you and I were talking. Go and sell it to them and then get the, the okay to be able to do the story. But I need that opening soundbite, because we only have so much time to capture the audience's attention. People changing channels, people are, it's all about on demand now. People aren't even really watching, right? They're not watching at the time that it's on, is my point. And same thing with the radio. It's so easy for us to just go through our presets. And so I need that opening 5 seconds that, like, oh my God, and then he killed me. And it's like, huh? What? I want to hear more.
If it's an event, the earlier the better. If you have something that noon and you tell us 8 a.m. that day, you just wasted 20 seconds on an email. It's not happening.
One of the things Sasha mentioned, also Chris, about selling it to their supervisor. Tiana, you were a producer at Channel 8, so you had reporters coming to you trying to sell stories.
Yeah, I've been both a producer and an assignment editor.
And let me just mention that I believe that there's an example of press release being circulated around out there.
Yeah, I wrote that for our Department of Neighborhood and Business Service, who in the city of Rochester, the Communications Bureau, we kind of filter up everything that's written in the city and make sure that it's written well. And just like Sasha and Chris talked about, that your lead, your hook is right at the beginning, if not in the title of the press release. So if you want to really pitch a good story, you want to also think about a hook. So why is this timely? Why right now? Like the Anti-Poverty Commission just released a report, right? So maybe at the community place, you guys have all these programs that people don't know about that are serving, families in a way that is already alleviating some of these issues. So there's your hook right there. But media is not always going to know that you're out there. You got to call and say, hey, this poverty report just came out, but I have this expert, I have Dr. Brock, ready to tell you, or whoever your expert is, that we've got these programs out here, we're out here, we're the other side of the story. So they're looking for balance, they're looking for a hook. The other thing with timing, be mindful of other things that are going on. So if there's a SWAT situation on Dewey, don't call the news station to talk about a carnival in 2 weeks. You know, and you can know this by just checking Twitter. You know, follow a Rochester media list. What are all the local reporters doing right now? Oh, there's a big trial. You know, let's not call them right now. And also see if you can find out what their editorial meeting schedules are. Typically, there's going to be a morning shift, evening shift, overnight shift. So before each of those shifts start, there's a meeting that takes place with the assignment editor, producers, reporters, news director, and they're deciding on coverage of the day. So they've got a map in front of them, a schedule of everything that's happening today. And everyone is, resources are tough in newsrooms. There might be one reporter that is also a photographer, and she edits her material too. So they can only do so much in one day. And so if you're up against the governor coming into town, at the city, I had an event planned on the day that the president came. So it was a pretty big groundbreaking. I had to cancel it because I knew that all those resources are going to be on the president, obviously. So there's some obvious things, but then, you know, there's social media is an excellent tool to kind of see what other things are happening. And then it might give you an idea for a humbug, you know, like with the Genesee Street tragedy. For city-wise, we had already done some interviews with Pathways to Peace and with teen empowerment. So following that, part of my job is to promote the good things that are happening in the city. So I worked on both ends. I'm kind of jumping back and forth. But so after that, I posted the stories that we did with teen empowerment and Pathways to Peace. Hey, like, here's things that are happening in the city. Yes, we know it's a challenge, but there are people there. There are boots on the ground here. Get to know them.
Yes, and also keep in mind when you send in press releases, as long as you cover who, what, why, when, cover those 4 points in your paragraph, you're good to go. And one thing I noticed, because I also work with the Anthony Street Block Club and the 19th Ward Community Association. We have a big Halloween event coming up each year on October 31st on Halloween. And what we always do is get that press release out, usually that week or 2 weeks prior, so that we can get the word out about it. And then on the day of the event, if you have your favorite reporter or someone now a favorite reporter like our friends down here at the end here, you email them personally the press release. And then on the day of the event, hit the assignment editor at the TV stations to say, hey, do you know about the Anthony's? Oh yeah, we did get that. Are you able to cover it? Well, if it does seem to be mighty slow, it might be slow today, it looks slow. Hey, I'll tell you what, I'll see what we can do. And you call earlier in the day to the TV stations so that you can assist in trying to get some TV coverage for your event on the day of the event. But you gotta have someone that just goes right through and calls all 3 or 4 or 5 stations, whatever the amount of stations there are, call them. And usually some of them will come out to your event. That can help you. Remember who, what, why, when, and then following up with your reporter, and then on the day of the event, following up with phone calls to the TV media to hopefully get one of them to come out and cover it.
9:30 is our morning budget meeting. 9:30 in the morning.
Mondays are typically slow news days. So
That's true.
Fridays as well.
Looking for stuff. Mondays,
So if there's a producer, if there's a assistant on the assignment desk that you know, that someone from your church maybe. One of my interns was Brendan Hobbs, who was such an asset to Channel 8 because he was so involved in the community and the church, and you know, it seemed he always knew someone connected to a story. And I think a lot of newsrooms, unfortunately, are lacking diversity. Really, is what it is.
Lacking, that's not even a word for it. It's a disgrace here in Rochester, the lack of African Americans on TV. And I was talking with a couple of African American people who are on the news, and they don't understand why we as a community don't say anything about it. In Buffalo, this wouldn't happen in Buffalo. They don't allow no crap like this. I mean, Lynette Adams has been at TV 10 for many years. Every blonde that comes in from out of town, they put her ahead of Lynette Adams. And Lynette Adams is an outstanding reporter. I sent an email into the station requesting her to be an anchor on the news. And I hope that everyone here, even as a group, AALDP or as Rochester Associated Black Journal, we all should get together, send emails and letters to TV 10 saying, we want Lynette Adams as an anchor on TV 10. Because it's a disgrace how they treat her over there. And we know what the reason is. She looks too black. She looks black. You see her on the news, you know she's a black woman. She dresses in black woman style, and they can't take that at TV 10. But yet, the community is not in uproar about it. We sit and we discuss, we talk about racism, we talk about diversity, but we don't do anything about it here in Rochester.
Let me just be...
So let me finish.
Okay.
We really need to take action on that. That should be something we need to go after, getting Lynette Adams as an anchor, because she's been in here almost 20 years as a reporter, and she should be anchoring the news 6 or 11, or she was on weekends, they took off, put another blonde on there, blue-eyed blonde. You get my hint? That's what they want to see. But that's not what we want to see. We're a large population in this market. If you think about it, if you just come to Rochester, go to a meeting, go back to the airport and leave, you don't think black people live in Rochester. I mean, you cut the news on and look at it and go downtown and go a couple places and leave. A couple people asked, there's a new guy out at Henderson Ford. He didn't even know black people existed. He said, how many black people in this town? Is there black people with money here? I said, man, where you been? He only been to Greece and Webster. And then he looks at the news. So he's new to the market. So that's what I'm saying. He's been here almost 4 or 5 months and don't even know that there's a black population in Rochester. So we really need to do a better job of promoting our own people and promoting our diversity. And we'll get those stories.
Didn't mean to interrupt you.
No problem.
Tell us about that.
I get started.
Yeah. One of the things George was talking about, racism, and before we came in here, one of the things that we were talking about is a story that had bubbled up from a blogger at the Democrat and Chronicle. I don't know how many of you are familiar about the story about the Denzel carousel out at the Ontario Beach Park and the racist caricature. And a lot of organizations now are using bloggers. Part of it is because of the reduction in the newsroom of reporters. And that's one of the more prominent examples that I can think of a blogger whose insight into something that disturbed them has really, it's been featured in the Challenger newspaper, and the Democrat and Chronicle's done several stories. So that's something that you may want to consider is if you have an interest in news, maybe you like to write, that's something to consider. Sure, go ahead, Chris.
And you know what, guys? There's a real opportunity there, particularly for us. The way our reporters are structured, we have one person who is in charge of community news, basically east of town, and then another person west of town. We actually have an opening for the person west of town, which is a different story. But if you want to freelance hyper-local community news, actually the woman in charge of that at the DNC is a sister. It's CJ, Cynthia Benjamin, over at the DNC. So we were just talking about relationships. That's an easier relationship to make with someone like us. You know what I'm saying? So we can't get to everything in those tiny pockets of the city, but you guys are starting to become the eyes and ears for us, because we have to be at the 9:30 meeting, or we have to figure out, how we're going to tell the story visually, or things like that. And when you build these relationships with us, you get a better sense for what type of stories or what type of incidents might lend themselves to us needing to know about, and you can be sort of that blogger or
Citizen journalist
for us. Tell Cynthia about it. There's a real opportunity there, because let's be honest, you guys, she looks like us, and it's easier to make that relationship and make that connection with her, as opposed to, like you said, a blonde, blue-eyed woman on the anchor desk.
As a matter of fact, Cynthia is one of the people that the Rochester Association of Black Journalists is going to be honoring in its gala in November. Cynthia and Rodney, your own Rodney Young, too, who's been out there taking a lot of photographs in the community. So
she's on our
Holler at
website.
me for tickets.
So she's on the website. I mean, all of us are. Reach out to her, email address, phone number, and opportunity there.
And not just professionally, but if you get to know the person that reporter is, Cynthia's a vet, and she's a mom, and she's very involved in her church. You know, if you know those things about someone, you know, she's got kids that are going to college and in college. If you've got a story, you've got a college fair coming up, or if you've got something that might spark her interest, you know, if you know someone's background, you know, you're in.
And just to give it, and keep in mind the type of battle that we're fighting here in Rochester, it goes on daily. And there's a lot of stories like, let me give you a quick footnote. Dexter Fugerson, he graduated with my son, Julian Reddy, my oldest son, so he's about 26 years old, here in Rochester. You know his mom, his family here. But Dexter graduated in visual studies from Canisius College in Buffalo, New York. He was a roommate of my son. He came back home, took a job at TV10, coming up at 3 in the morning and working that early morning news shift. And so he worked a couple weeks, and then I saw him at the house. I said, "Hey, what you doing here? What's going on?" He said, "Hey, man." He said, "You know they let me go?" I said, "They let you go?" I said, "What are you talking about?" He said, "They let me go because they said I wasn't ready to, my news skills wasn't up to par, or just have to work on they told me to work on my skills of writing and so forth." I said, "Really?" I said, "Who told you this?" So I ended up emailing the person there at TV10, and he said, "Hey, I'm on my way to go to Atlanta. I have some relatives down in Atlanta." So he went down to Atlanta, stayed with his relative. Next thing I know, he emails my son and he tells me he's working for Tyler Perry. He's working in the production team for the last 3 years. And then if you notice, this past Tuesday night, he made his acting debut on The Haves and the Have-Nots. So that's just the type of racism we're dealing with here in Rochester, New York, where they're going to tell a young college graduate from Canisius College in visual studies that he don't know what he's doing. You're supposed to be teaching him and training him. But they didn't do that, but he went on down and he went to his own people, and Tyler Perry saw that, and now he's an actor, and he's working in the finance department as well. He makes sure everybody get paid there, so everybody, everybody knows him, so everybody definitely working with him. So that's just a little footnote of what's going on that you don't see every day.
And on the flip side, I do want to say, like, you know, at WXXI, I remember one of the first things, I became treasurer, I think, back in June, roughly. And I remember one of the first things, after the congratulations, my boss was like, "Great, so now you go into these meetings with the RABJ, do they have black people that want to work here?" Like right away they wanted to use it to their advantage. Like, "Oh, great, she has this direct connection with other black people. We can get some more black people in this building because we had none." And so, well, except like me and Joanne and like a speckle of others. But on the air, just myself and Helen, I would think, right? Yeah. And Tej, yes, who works with
and particularly black males.
But we don't have any black males. We got James the other day, but.
So I have a question.
Sure.
Yes.
Yeah, and I was going to suggest we go into question.
I'm a native Rochesterian, and members of my family are in journalism. And Rochester has hired people of color. So the issue or the question I have is, what does your organization do to influence retention? Because the hiring does happen, maybe not at the rate that you need it to happen, but it does happen. So what can you do, or what are you doing to influence retention?
In the media?
In the media.
In the media. You tell me who the African American males are that.
So whatever they're hiring, how do you keep them? Because if you can't get the base, you cannot grow the base. So.
Well, I mean, some of it is the opportunities that you have for growth in the newsroom. I know that there's been people who have felt stymied at the Democrat and Chronicle, and I'm sure in some of the other organizations. I mean, our organization exists to provide some camaraderie and support, because when you're in that newsroom, I mean, I've had instances of when I did a story one time on Latimer Funeral Home, and they did not, they hadn't had a story done on them in a long time, and the paragraph that was called into question by a copy editor was about them moving from near Mount Olivet Baptist Church to Plymouth Avenue, where they are now, and there was an imaginary line at one point in terms of the white and the black community, and a copy editor asked me several times about that. And I had attribution in there, which is very important. Story came out, that was gone. And we had a minority committee at the Democrat and Chronicle to address issues like that. And I brought it up, and the copy editor said, oh, well, you know, there was all these ads and we just didn't have room. And the black woman who was chairing it said, you know, if you just reduce that photograph down, you could have included that. So sometimes it's just the frustration that you have in the newsroom of just getting your story ideas heard. And
I'll tell you, recently, so one of the things I wanted to say was, you know, your question is how do they keep us? Like, sometimes, sadly, it's because you're the token, and so you're like, well, it's just me, so they'll utilize me for every black thing that they want, you know. So it's I'll get work, I'll get my face out there, I'll get my stories out there, but that's really a sad reason to be, you know, why I would stay with the company. We recently had a news retreat, if you will, where we just had the reporters and management sort of just took a day, you know, to strategize and just come up with our goals for the next bit. And you know, we really got into some heated discussions as to like how operations are running at PBS and NPR, and racial stuff came up. And again, kind of being the token in the room, I brought up, you know, I was like, one of the things that were bothering me was, you know, they'd have issues, you know, and stories that were affecting the black community in Rochester, but would never look to me for comment. And I'm like right there in the building. So again, kind of going on George's point, you know, the blondes and such, you know, would get called in for Connect. We have a daily talk show, radio talk show called Connections. And they would get called in to give expert comment on, like, you know, the black community and how they feel about the Genesee Street shootings and XYZ. And I'm literally at my computer around the corner, and I'm like, really? I'm hearing this on the air, and I'm like, this is being broadcast from right around the corner, and nobody bothered to ask me my opinion? Like, you know, so I spoke up about that immediately, and it was like, you know, no, I don't want to become now the resident black expert in the building, but at the same time, I need to be heard because I have a direct relation to what you're talking about. And so that kind of becomes frustrating, as Kevin was saying. Yeah.
Can I add one? I'm going to get to you guys' questions, but I want to answer a little bit part of your question a little bit more directly. Let's maybe be blunt here. It is, this organization is great and is for camaraderie. It is not up to this organization to keep us in individual newsrooms, which they don't own. They can't do that. It is up to the leadership of these individual organizations to help us stay. And traditionally, the reasons why we've hopped to different places, 5 reasons. Number 1, we've been somewhere and we've worked and they haven't helped us grow our skill set. No one wants to be complacent where we work at. We want to be better at what we do. Everybody got into this because we were half crazy and we want to be better than what we were 6 months ago. Not a lot of places are doing that well. That's just the honest truth. The second one is, when we do happen to get better, we are not ready.
About 15 minutes left, right, Kim? Yes. Okay, so we want to keep that in mind. Yeah, is it 8? Okay.
I know we've been talking about race and all that, and I do understand that that is a problem. I just wanted to question with regards to your organization is, are you guys really just looking for situations around race and equality, or do you also welcome stories about some of those bridges being connected?
Absolutely.
Where races are actually coming together and doing something positive, you know?
Yes, we are. Definitely, yes, we definitely need to be doing more of this and more of getting jobs for our people. That's what we really need to be fighting for, more jobs for our people. Because our people are being left on the sideline without jobs. People with PhDs and all kinds of writers, producers, I mean, you name it. We got that out there in the market that's looking for a job.
This is what I was talking about when I'm saying if you guys know specifically the roles of each of these media people in our organizations, it helps you a lot more. Does anybody know Erica Bryant?
Yes.
She's a sister.
Yes, she is.
And she was a panelist last year. On this last year.
And she,
great writer.
Her column, she's a sister, and her column is about positive news. If about positive news. That is her entire role, is to write about the great things that's happening in the city.
Every Saturday.
Every Saturday.
In the Democrat Chronicle, I read her column every Saturday morning.
And she's a fantastic writer.
She's done some great reporting on the city school district and good things that are happening in the city school district, because there's a ton. You could do a good story on a school, a program, a child, a success story. You could do one every single day.
So we all have people in our organizations that have that, and we want more of that.
And judging by the people in the non-nods, I would suggest subscribing to the Democrat Chronicle, reading the paper, so you see what. I tell my sons now, they don't. I said, see, you guys all online, but you don't know what's going on because you're not reading the paper. The paper is still. I don't care what people say. The paper still carries its weight and tells you more than what this right here is telling you. This is telling you a lot of garbage too, but you know, there's good stuff in there too. But read the DNC, read the Challenger, pick up as many publications as you can, because that's where you get the real news at. You get the extended stories. You get to find out what's really going on in the community. And Erica Bryant, I read her every Saturday morning in the DNC. So definitely check her column out.
Sasha, did you have a
Yeah, I was just going to say, Asia, one of the things I do as well, I mentioned briefly, I highlight, anything that's moving the upstate economy. So it doesn't even have to be so hyper local, but businesses, like I said, any types of innovations that are any new and upcoming positive things that are boosting the economy in some way. And so I'm always looking for stuff like that. So it's not always, I want to make sure it's clear, we talked a lot about racial issues and things like that. It's not always about that. Sometimes I simply just want a black face in my story. So if I want a doctor to talk about something, sometimes I just want a black doctor because everybody else I just want to put some balance in there. So it's, a lot of times it's not going to be you commenting on, and I definitely don't do crime, so it's never going to be about this shooting or that shooting or what have you. But sometimes I just want some diversity in my story. I'm working on something right now, and again, this was someone who pitched it to me. I was in the right place at the right time, following up on those Everest College students. No one has cared since April, what has happened to them. And I just happened to be in the right place at the right time and nosy, perked my ears up when somebody mentioned that they were talking to some of the students. I was like, what's going on with them? And so right now I'm working with them, and I just spoke to an attorney that they're working with, and I just met with them, worked till 9 o'clock last night at a church down here, just hanging out with some of the former students. And, at the end of that interview, it's funny because I wanted to make sure that I had, there was a couple of Caucasian ladies in the room. There was quite a few black single mothers, quite a few Hispanic. There was a Hispanic single dad with the 8-month-old baby in it. I'm interviewing him and he's like this during the interview. But how compelling is that going to be on television versus? Right. Do you understand what I'm saying? So a lot of times I'm not always coming to you with, oh man, how have they screwed us over again? It's not always going to be about the woe is me and the woe is us and all the things that we've been through. But it's just you guys are professionals. I was extremely proud to hear you guys go through all the things that you're doing, and I'm just like, oh great, I want to open up my world to these contacts and just have your faces on television. That's all I
Any
want.
good journalist in 2015 should always make sure that their story is balanced in every way, not just two sides, but it's diverse. And any good executive producer, if they bring you a story and everyone is, one race, any race, if it's, I did a story and if it was all Asians, my, executive producer might say, what's going on? This is not reflective of the community. So.
And keep in mind, we have a section called Rochester's Best Kept Secret. It's about our youth, and we have features on our youth once a month, but we love to increase that to twice a month. So if you're out there and you have articles on your youth, you're doing, feel free to. Yeah, that's right. There's some hillside people here, so that'll be perfect. That's right. So I look forward to working with everybody. I'll have my cards and everything for you at the end of the today.
That's a great transition, actually. Working with the young people, I just wanted to know, how do we excite them about getting into communications? Are there any programs, anything we can involve our students in? Right now, I know, just working with young people, they love singing and poetry and, rapping, working in the city school district. How do we get them to apply that to writing or being up on broadcasting, journalism? How do we excite them about those fields?
And for the city of Rochester, and Brittany's sitting right across, can tell you, in our recreation centers, our centers, we have a program called the Rock Stars Talent Show, and they just put out a fantastic highly produced, beautiful video that we had featured on Citywise, and Keish did a little wraparound for that. But yeah, you're right. There's a lot of programs. So Imagine You at the Central Library is one that's specifically getting kids ready for video production, and they are writing, they are editing, they are shooting, they are operating the camera, they are doing everything hands-on. And that's after school, and it's completely free. And they are producing high-quality music videos. They produced a video called Save a Life. It's an anti-violence video. They did this before Genesee Street. These are kids coming up with their own ideas and telling their own stories. There's internships with the City of Rochester. There's paid employment opportunities with Summer of Opportunity and Rochester Works. There's a ton of stuff out there we can connect about that with the city, and it's almost always free. That's one thing I love about Rochester.
What's the relationship with RCTV? Don't they offer?
Is I think the city has a spot on the board.
Okay.
It's politics and government, but City 12 is similar to RCTV and WXXI. We're a PEG channel on public education and government, so we're the government end of that.
I know when I've been over to RCTV, they do some things with youth too.
And also Kenny John, who puts out a magazine here in Rochester as well, has a youth apprenticeship program where he has youth work on articles and stories, and he runs those stories in the magazine. And is he what's the name of his publication?
Our Voice.
Our Voice. There you go, Our Voice.
Even if you're not looking for a
Yeah,
specific,
get in contact with him.
sorry.
No, no problem. Go ahead.
It doesn't have to be a specific program. If you want a one-on-one mentorship, or you just want a job shadow for a day just to see what it's like, and any one of us, I'm sure, welcomes that.
I love it that we have people shadow all the time at WXXI, as well as tours. Maybe that might be a start for some of our live programs, such as Homework Hotline. They have tours come in, sit in, watch a TV show. Some people are sitting in the control room. Some people are in the studio actually watching the teachers do that. So that's a start.
The question earlier about retention, grow them up from Rochester, hire them as your intern, then make them a producer, then let them report, and they're invested in this community. They're not looking to, go to New York City or necessarily be an anchor. Maybe they love reporting. Like, cultivate those kids that are interested in it and keep them here.
Internships are very important. Yes. Very important.
I had one every year of, I think I told you that already. I had one almost per semester, just from first year all the way through. I just was interning like crazy. And guess what? That's how I got my job. That's how I landed a full-time job in the last semester of the last year. And then it ended up, it was a juggle, but I wasn't one of the your statistical graduates that was, day out of graduation, you're like, okay, video games and Maury Povich or whatever. And I wanted to say to you as well, RABJ knows this, but I used to be on the board of the CABJ, which is the Canadian Association of Blind Journalists, and my specific role was the student liaison. So I would connect students with organizations and just kind of, they knew they had the writing skills, like you mentioned. They like to write poetry, they like to do this, they like to tinker with video cameras, but they didn't quite know what they wanted to do with it. And I would literally get them connected with organizations and get in there. WXXI is always looking for students. We're doing some stuff with St. John Fisher kids coming up soon, where they're actually going to be able to tell stories. Like, they're actually going to be on air. And so some of the guys and girls that you work with, definitely send them my way.
Okay.
Yeah.
I saw a hand in the middle there.
Thank you. So my question is referring to the programs. Is the programs only for Rochester residents? And I say that because a lot of the suburban residents, there is projects within the suburban community that service African Americans as well as Hispanics. Can they utilize the city services as well, because some is closed off to
So
them?
the central library, the library system is operated by the county and the city, so yeah, absolutely, yes. Some of the things like Summer of Opportunity, where there's an application process, there may be a residency requirement. I'm not sure.
I can answer to that one. Yeah, I can give them. So, all city purpose once in a while, but I really don't know your opinion of. And also a comment, thank you for sharing all of that information that's in the newspaper, because I am so guilty of the electronic news. But now I decided I am going to advertise to the lot of great information in there. I didn't know all of that.
Thank you. Great. Glad to hear. You can pick us up at most businesses in the community, Worldwide News, downtown, most churches in the African American community. We deliver to most of the churches as well. Most corner stores as well have our papers
Worldwide
as well.
News.
Worldwide News is a big location. The libraries as well. All of the libraries have our papers as well. And it's free of charge. You can pick us up weekly, no charge.
Or Georgia at the
I have papers for you. I have this week's edition for you as well.
See, that's what I'm talking about.
Let's take a question here.
Well, I have more of a personal story, so I kind of have a personal story.
Go ahead, tell us.
Take about 2 minutes.
Go ahead.
About all we got left.
But I've actually had, I want to use the word relationship with one of the panel members. I don't know if you guys remember. But as I tell the story, you guys will eliminate yourself. And then some of you will be like, could be me, could be me, could be me. Even though I'm in IT, I came to the realization that it's not my passion. You know, I like my job, I like doing what I do, but it's not my passion. And children is my passion. And I reflected the things that I've done in life. There was always children involved and stuff. And I did something when I first started working in Rochester.
Okay, Roland, we've got to start ramping it up.
Okay, this was back in '92. And
what's your question?
It's a story, not a question.
Story.
Yeah, we're not good.
In '92, I gathered a bunch of kids, and I always felt that some of these kids, all they know is the four walls of their community and stuff. And so I wanted to give them some experience inside of a real world work environment. So I reached out to an individual and I said, hey, can I bring these kids down to your job? And he said, yes. Long story short, I ran into this kid at the press conference after the Genesee ordeal at the public safety building. And I heard him I heard somebody talking like, I recognize that person, but I didn't realize he was talking to me. Then he came to me. And then he said, one of the things, remember when you took us to Channel 10 and we sat in that meteorologist's office and stuff and he let us watch the news live and I never knew that, that there was really nothing there, I'm like, used to know there was this green wall and stuff, and I was looking at TVs and stuff like that. And he remembered that. And this was back in the early 90s. And he said, I remember that. And even though that's not what I'm doing, but I appreciate you exposing me to other things. And right now, he works Pathways to Peace. I think his passion is to make sure that he makes a difference in young kids' lives and stuff.
And little did you know back then that you would be that impactful.
Yeah.
Right.
And Roland, that was in '95 when I had to tweet that. Took them on a tour of Channel 10. I showed them what I do as a meteorologist, and they really got a lot out of it. I'm thank you for sharing that story, because I love working with kids as well, and I have them in and I mentor them, and I hire them too. I teach kids in the schools. I hire them and I pay them a good wage when they do my photography for me. So thank you so much for bringing that up, Roland.
Yeah, perfect ending.
Can I just come today just sharing your wealth of knowledge with us, just on telling us how to get our word out there and just making us more aware. And just as a token of our appreciation, we just wanted to present each of you with a thank you card. And also, I know people were interested in giving their business cards, and you guys are interested in giving us business cards. For those of you who didn't bring them today, Mr. Young has said he would accept them from us and then to get them to everybody if you guys didn't bring them today. Okay?
Thank you.